This is part 2 of my response to Earth Mama Medicines, why I'm no longer vegan. If you haven't seen part 1, check that out first.
For everyone, but especially the woman's body, the woman's body, hormones. If you're dealing with PCOS, stop skipping breakfast.
Is it women, all women, or is it women with PCOS? What is happening?
Eat breakfast. Eat. If you're not hungry in the morning, you can go hours and hours without eating in the morning. That's not a good sign, actually. It shouldn't be worn as a badge of honor. It's a sign that your hormones are off.
If you don't eat breakfast, it's a sign that your hormones are off? What? Is this the worst anti-vegan video I've ever seen? Or just like the worst health/nutrition video I've ever seen? It might be. There are plenty of people who don't know anything about intermittent fasting, but they skip breakfast because they're not hungry. And that's okay. Or maybe it's not, maybe they're overweight because they're not eating enough early in the day and they're just like binging at night. That's totally a possibility. But there are plenty of people. Dr. Aaron Carroll from Healthcare Triage, he's talked about how he doesn't make himself eat breakfast because it's horrible for him. He's not hungry. One of his kids is the same way. I just think it's terrible to scare people into forcing themselves to eat breakfast if they're not hungry, if they're not ready to eat yet. And to hear this from someone who literally says in the first couple minutes in the video that everyone's different.
What works for you might not work for the person next to you.
Everyone's different, but also no one can intermittent fast. Okay.
After several weeks of butter and eggs and feeling much better, I decided to get my gut tested again, and things had evened out. The bacteria was evening out.
What does that mean, bacteria evening out? When does that mean? It's like the adrenals being switched. What does that mean?
After getting that second gut health test, I said, all right, I'm going to follow this one again. This time, I'm going to integrate some meat. And the reason why I decided to integrate some meat, I'll tell you right now a little bit of the science.
So everything was fine now, and yet now she's going to incorporate meat?
Not all protein is created equal. I repeat, not all protein is created equal. Vegans, this is where you're going to get a little mad at me.
No, I will not get mad. I mean, it depends on what she's going to say, but you guys know I've said plenty of times on this channel that most plant protein is not of as high quality when it comes to bioavailability as meat, right? There's something called protein digestibility score. You can look it up, and if you look at plant foods, they are a little bit, not really significantly, depending on the food, lower than meat and eggs. If I remember correctly, potatoes actually have a fairly high score. That's weird. I guess that's not too weird because they don't really have a lot of inhibitors, right? Like legumes and rice do. But just because that's true doesn't mean we can't get protein from plants. We can absolutely get plenty of protein from plants. We just need to eat enough food, obviously, and we need to be a little bit careful about what foods we're eating. So you can't just eat rice and bananas or whatever. You want to make sure you're eating legumes. You want to make sure you're eating lentils and chickpeas and peanuts, tofu, that sort of stuff.
It is not enough for a food to just contain protein. You need to be able to digest that protein, and you need to be able to absorb that protein. And this is where the problem comes in with plants. Plants like nuts, seeds, and grains, and soy, and beans, yes, they contain protein, but the very nature of these plants, when we look at them scientifically, is to resist digestion. So we cannot absorb the protein. It is not bioavailable to the human body. Now, of course, there are ways we can change it. Preparation of these foods changes the way our bodies digest them.
Just because these foods have a lower score, a lower digestibility score, doesn't mean you don't absorb any protein. This is what I'm talking about with the Sally Fannin, is that her name? The Nourishing, whatever it's called, and the Lear Keith and Weston A. Price, all that sort of stuff. They are obsessed with plant protein not being absorbed, with vitamin A, right? You can't get vitamin A from plants. It has to be converted, and the conversion rate's too low. Same with DHA, iron, right? Non-heme iron. Actually, no, give our bodies some credit. They're actually pretty good at converting these things and utilizing these things. We have to provide a little bit of help, right? So when it comes to non-heme iron, you want to eat your non-heme iron sources with vitamin C sources. So lentils with tomatoes and red bell peppers, a peanut butter sandwich with a glass of orange juice. And we have evidence for this. We see iron absorption significantly improve when we do this. We see that we can get plenty of protein as long as, again, you are eating good protein sources like legumes. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that you cannot absorb protein from plants. If you're just crunching on some raw beans, yeah, okay, sure. But literally no one is doing that. I don't know, she was raw. Maybe that's what she was doing. That might explain a lot.
So after 5 years of veganism, my body was not absorbing and assimilating and synthesizing these plants in a good way at all. And things were starting to go haywire, which is why now I can confidently say veganism can be great for you if you're trying it out for whatever reasons, but I don't recommend vegan diets for anyone long term, especially women.
Full on avoiding the everyone's unique thing.
What works for you might not work for the person next to you.
No, she doesn't think anyone should do a vegan diet.
Cows have 3 stomachs. So when they eat all of this greenery, that's why they have those 3 stomachs to really process. It takes an incredible amount of processing. Have you ever noticed when you eat a big bowl of cruciferous vegetables or a big salad, you're bloated, you have all of this gas in your stomach because our stomachs aren't designed to process that much plant material.
Does she think that like legumes and rice and the vegetables we eat are like grass? No, we cannot get virtually anything out of grass. There's a reason why we don't eat grass. We are not like cows. She's absolutely correct. That's why we don't eat grass. Oh my goodness. This is just embarrassing.
So we get those nutrients from those plants through the animal because the animal has processed them for us. So you're getting bioavailable vitamin A. The vitamin A that you're getting out of carrots is not bioavailable to the human body.
Again, the carotenoids we get from carrots and sweet potatoes and pumpkin and everything else, our bodies can use. Just because there's an extra little step doesn't mean that we're not getting vitamin A. And it doesn't mean that this like isn't known by everyone. There's even a term, it's called retinol activity equivalent. Even in like Chronometer, you go to Chronometer, you go to your profile and all the little nutrients, all the micronutrients you want to see, you can see RAE on there. You can actually monitor that. And it's really silly because foods like carrots and sweet potato have so much. All you have to eat is like 1 carrot and you meet or almost meet your RAE requirements for the day. Now you do have to eat those foods. You know, I see some of these like what I ate today's and people are just like not eating very much vitamin A. Not all plants have vitamin A. Most of them are not great sources. You want to make sure you're eating carrot, sweet potato, pumpkin, certain other squashes, cantaloupe, stuff like that regularly to make sure you're getting your vitamin A. But literally you have to eat like 1 small carrot and you're good. It's like worrying about vitamin C on a vegan diet. Oh my God, you eat 1 orange, you're good.
I started taking liver pills, and the amount of energy and rejuvenation I felt from just a week of taking liver pills every day was incredible.
So our brains are really dumb. We can convince ourselves that something is working just by thinking it's gonna work.
When women don't eat animal foods, they often see issues in detoxification and metabolism, which looks like acne, hair loss, inability to lose weight, irritability, blood sugar issues like I was having, hypothyroidism, gut issues, which is what I was having, PMS, foggy thinking.
Brain fog. But like the things she listed, evidence, please. Sources, please. Because actually, if you look at vegetarian and vegan diets specifically, because she had said animal foods, obviously, if you're vegetarian, you can still be eating animal foods. If you look at evidence on vegan diets, you don't see a preponderance of weight gain, certainly not. You see the opposite. You don't see an increased risk of hypothyroidism. Like, she's just pulling this stuff out of her butt. It's not cool.
Please don't let butter scare you. Saturated fats are actually very nutritious for the body. I'll put some videos in the description. How about that? Because they're going to explain it a lot better than I will.
Oh, there it is. Nourishing traditions. Saturated fat is not dangerous. Oh boy, and she links to what I've learned. Check out my response to that right here if you're interested. There is more nuance to the saturated fat discourse than many vegans would like to admit, but not very much. Overall, saturated fat is still not a great food for us. Certainly not a health food. Nobody but quacks are saying saturated fat is a health food, that we should be incorporating more saturated fat in our diets. Most experts are still saying limit saturated fat or at the most extreme, it's like maybe a neutral food at best. That's like the most you're gonna get. It's only the quacks saying saturated fat is good for us, is a health food.
But I'll put videos in the description about why saturated fats are actually very great for the human body in so many ways, and actually what made big pharma and all sorts of media outlets and what was in for the food industry to start marketing saturated fats as unhealthy, because it's a big, long rabbit hole to jump down. But I guarantee you, you will feel better cooking your food with butter and lard than you will cooking your food with Crisco and corn oil.
So first, big pharma, never a good sign. Number two, I assume, believes in the kind of story that the demonization of saturated fat came from like a kind of evil place, like it was intentional promotion of sugar and all of that stuff. If you want to see the slightly, not sordid, that's not the right word, but the more nuanced and really interesting history of saturated fat and just fat recommendations in general, low fat recommendations in general, there's a really good article from Harvard Health that I highly recommend everyone to read. But I'm not surprised that she believes the sensational aspect of it. Like, again, many of these people who promote saturated fat do. It's a very like conspiratorial sort of mindset that many people like this have. Again, big pharma, right? Many raw foodists, ex-raw foodists have this sort of thinking. They really like the idea that a lot of people were behind this like big scam, you know, out to get people. And the reality is, I mean, it's both less interesting in a way because it's not that at all, but also really interesting because people are people and people fuck up. And the story of saturated fat and low fat recommendations is really a story of fuck ups, but it's mostly people trying to do good, right? Trying to do good and trying to do the best for the public.
But I guarantee you, you will feel better cooking your food with butter and lard than you will cooking your food with Crisco and corn oil.
Because those are the only two plant oils, Crisco and corn oil. Wasn't she vegan? Doesn't she know? Maybe that's her issue, right? Maybe she just didn't know or doesn't know that olive oil, coconut oil exists, so she was just exclusively using Crisco and corn oil. Do I even have to say? Like, do I even have to say? This is just complete silliness. Is the nicest way I can put it.
So I know you're going to be asking about, what about the animals? How could you possibly switch from wanting to protect these animals and wanting to save lives and not contribute to murder and just immediately erase all of that just for your own skin health or your own health? I completely understand that.
I don't have that question at all. To be quite frank, I'm not surprised at all. I think a lot of vegans, it's easier for them to just see her as never having really cared about animals and not caring now. I mean, she says she is eating eggs from chickens that she raises and cares for. That's cool. Certainly she's eating meat. It's not hard to tell ourselves that it's necessary, that in order to be healthy, in order for her not to have acne, that she has to do this. It's not hard for us to convince ourselves that it's fine, actually. And it's not surprising to me that she's gone full on, not only saying, hey, this worked for me, butter seems to help, I don't know, but it's what works for me. No. She has to completely go, no, we actually all need animal foods. It's necessary for hormonal health. Going by the description that cows are actually good for the environment. Like, she has gone full on anti-vegan, right? Like, that's the sad part about this video. It's not her no longer being vegan. It happens. It's not surprising at all. It's that she's gone full on with the bullshit anti-vegan rhetoric. That sucks.
Let me share a little bit of insight. A lot of the vegan ideology is set up around that superficial set of ethics, which is protecting animals, the environment, wildlife. But all of that really falls apart when you look below the surface. A meatless diet is not a bloodless diet. Many animals lose their lives in the process of farming vegetables.
Yeah, what did I just say? Like, full on anti-vegan. Are there any vegans? Like, I'm sure there are some of the really goofy ones who just hear about veganism and go vegan, and they're just like, we don't kill any animals, woohoo! Like the super spiritual ones, like maybe she was when she was vegan. But like, most of us know that we still kill animals regularly, just our presence on this earth. We are regularly killing bugs, just walking around, riding cars, riding our bikes, whatever. And of course, the production, the harvesting of our food kills lots of animals. It's an issue of degree. We want to minimize animal cruelty, animal suffering as much as possible. And clearly going vegan does that. Not to say that like vegan is the pinnacle of it. Certainly you could develop some like scavenger diet, right? Where you're like eating roadkill or you're dumpster diving, that sort of thing, where your impact is even less and you're possibly killing even less animals. Absolutely. But for most of us, the thing that we can actually achieve is veganism. And there's no question that a vegan diet kills way less animals than your standard omnivore diet.
If you equate the life of a rabbit or squirrel as equal to that of a cow and are truly looking to kill the least amount of lives to feed your own, then I would argue that killing one cow that lived on a pasture is actually causing less death than the number of animal lives that are lost by modern row cropping techniques.
So that's an interesting question. And I think I've been asked that before. Like, what if there's someone who just lives on a cow for a whole year? Aren't they causing like less damage than someone eating a vegan diet or someone eating multiple animals, obviously? I suppose you could advocate for that sort of diet, just living on one cow. Although, number one, maybe don't do that because you're gonna die. And number two, literally no one's gonna do that because who is gonna do that? Who is gonna be able to do that? Who wants to do that? When we talk about diet, we talk about heuristics, right? Which is something that is like a good mantra to have that works like 99% of the time. And for 99% of the people watching this, veganism is what makes sense, right? It's why I'm not going to go on and on about like eating invasive species, because most people are not going to do that. They don't have the means to do that. They don't have the desire to do that. I'm not going to go on and on about dumpster diving because most of us don't have the means. We don't have the desire to do that. I'm not going to go dumpster diving, but veganism, eating plants, eating the shit that you can buy in the grocery store, that you can cook easily at home. Now there's a bunch of convenient shit that you can buy that's vegan. That's something that most of us can do. Now, in terms of like comparing, a cow to a rabbit to a chicken, I don't know exactly how you quantify that. I know super smarter people than me have attempted to do so. I believe Brian Tomasic has talked about that a lot in the past. But I, like virtually everyone, I do believe in a gradient when it comes to sentience, right? Not all animals are equally sentient. But like how many chickens equal a cow? How many rabbits equal a cow? And certainly, like, anti-vegans and whatnot are not the only people talking about this. Again, like with harvesting and killing animals when we harvest plants, like vegans regularly talk about this. Killing of certain animals being worse than others. Vegans regularly talk about this, particularly those who are leaning towards effective altruism or just those who try to be the most effective in their outreach. You will regularly hear vegans talk about the problem with the push towards eating chicken and fish instead of eating cow. I actually have a video on that, kind of criticizing that point of view, or kind of worried about the optics of that sort of message. But again, it's just this idea that like, oh, they have all the answers and they're asking the questions that vegans don't want to ask. It's kind of silly. Now, I will admit that many vegans don't talk about that stuff, but it's not because, I don't think it's because they're like afraid. I think it's just because that's not what they talk about. If you look at most vegan channels, they are focused on recipes. They're focused on like what I ate today's. They're not doing like vegan explanatory videos. They're not doing like vegan 101 stuff unless it's nutrition related. So this might be like a revelation for her, but that's because maybe she just wasn't very curious when she was vegan. Again, maybe she was one of those vegans who was just like peace and love and veganism and really didn't know anything about the philosophical underpinnings of such an ethical position.
Meat is being vilified as causing cancer, heart disease, diabetes, yet there are literally no solid studies to back this up.
The link between red meat, at least processed meat, and cancer is fairly strong. I will give her that the link between red meat, unprocessed red meat, and cancer, not so much. This is unsurprising coming from her, right? A food is either good or it's bad, and she has determined that animal products are good, so there can't be any link to any sort of health problem, any sort of disease.
Grazing animals, restoring land, while converting cellulose into protein. The truth is, well-managed cattle are the unlikely heroes of this story.
So of course she's promoting regenerative farming, the idea that cows are actually good for the planet. We want grazing land. It's great. Unsurprising, we saw the What I've Learned video in the description. Again, this is not evidence-based.
I stopped being vegan right before I got pregnant. I don't even know how pregnant women go through pregnancies vegan. I wouldn't recommend it at all.
Like, peace and love.
What works for you might not work for the person next to you.
But also, don't be vegan while you're pregnant. Okay, I've had 2 pregnancies vegan. It was fine. I mean, it was more than fine. I was regularly complimented on like not gaining too much weight. I was regularly complimented on just like what an easy patient I was because there was never anything wrong. Not saying that veganism is right for every pregnancy. I would caution anyone who is like not willing to take supplements, do not do it. You will kill your baby if you don't take B12. And certainly there are women who try and just have such severe food aversions and such a hard time getting enough calories and all of the fiber that can come along with a vegan diet that it can make it really, really hard. So as I've said in the past, I'm absolutely sympathetic when someone says they just could not stay vegan while pregnant. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm a better person than she is. She's willing to say no one should be pregnant while vegan because she got cystic acne while she was vegan and then ate butter and it went away. I'm saying I have had successful vegan pregnancies, but maybe that won't be the same for you. Everyone's different. So am I the true like spiritual guru?
I feel so much better eating intuitively, eating ancestrally, eating foods, animal foods that I get from local farms. I eat my own eggs from my chickens here. I butcher my chickens here, and I eat chicken from the chickens that I've raised.
Wow, so she actually kills her own chickens. Okay, that's like more extreme. I don't understand. Like, how can you say you still care about animals and you kill them to eat them? Either she just like doesn't care or doesn't care about chickens specifically, or again, going down this rabbit hole as she's described it, which I don't think means what she thinks. I mean, usually that has a negative connotation, right? It means you've gone like a little bit crazy in terms of your obsession with something, which is what this is, I think, ultimately for her, this like weird obsession with animal foods and hormones. She is full in on this stuff to the point where she's actually killing her own animals and probably seeing it as a badge of honor. She's living ancestrally, as she says. I thought she said incestuously at first. I was very confused.
I order raw butter and raw milk from local farms and farms online. I'll also put some information below if you're looking for raw dairy.
And there we have it. Raw milk. Great.
Peace and love to you all, okay? I hope you're doing well. Let's take a deep breath together. There's a lot of information to digest, right? One more.
So that's the video. I really do think it's like the worst anti-vegan video I've ever seen. The worst ex-vegan, anti-vegan video I've ever seen. I've watched lots of ex-vegan videos on this channel. A fair number have been people who really struggled, often due to like the high amount of fiber, right? They had IBS and they couldn't stick with it. That's like, yeah, fine. What am I going to say other than like, be healthy, you know, try to limit animal products as much as possible, obviously, but it is true that not everyone can be vegan successfully. And then you have a fair number of people who maybe are more into alt med stuff and it's like more confusing. I had these problems and then I did this and this to fix it, and it was the vegan diet that was the problem, and it's like what? Or they just ate like all raw foods or ate like mostly fruit and very little protein or fat, and then they start eating animal foods and they're eating more fat and they wonder why they feel better. And then you have the few like the raw alignment and like the earth mama medicine now, where they are just promoting a ton of misinformation. Like, not just this is my experience, saturated fat is good for you, actually. Cows are good for the planet, actually. And I think she touches on like every single thing here, just like everything is here. Wow. And again, remember, like, I'm a bitch. I was a bitch throughout this whole video. I don't want people to take away from it that like that's a good thing. Like, I think I'm gonna have to go back and edit, but I think I was over the top in some areas because I knew what I was getting into, and then honestly it was way worse than I thought it was going to be. There's a good chance I was meaner than I needed to be, so please don't be like, yeah, get her, girl. Like, that's not cool. You know, I can criticize what she's saying without being a mega bitch. No one deserves that. I mean, some people deserve that. She probably doesn't deserve that. Probably trying to do the best she can and just doesn't really understand science and probably gets too excited about the new thing that she's doing, genuinely wants to help other people, right? I mean, I don't think she's doing this video out of malice or anything. I think she believes what she's experienced and she really does think her animal product diet has helped her, and so she's trying to share that with other people to help them too. But like, for the love of God, please do not drink raw milk. If you take one thing from this fucking video, please don't drink raw milk. And please don't support companies like this. or this. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Like the video if you did. Subscribe if you did. Click the bell if you want to be notified when I upload. Thank you so much to patrons over at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I post 2 exclusive videos there a month for $5 plus patrons. And finally, I am streaming over on the Twitch. I've been having a lot of fun with that, streaming games and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I've wanted to do it for a long time, but it's just been hard. And finally, I just was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it at night because that's really the only time I can do it with the kids. And I've actually been like looking forward to it the nights I do it. So yeah, I do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7:30 Pacific time. Pacific, are we daylight now or are we saving? I don't know. I know we just fell back, which I forgot about. So I was very confused because now clocks just do it on their own, right? Anyway, thanks everybody. New video soon. And I'm sorry if my stomach's been like the whole time. I had apple and peanut butter. I don't know what it is. Every time, not every time, almost every time I have apple and peanut butter, my stomach gets like so loud. It's not painful or anything. I don't have gas. It just like every few minutes. Sorry.